Well, my friends, common sense is officially back. Donald Trump just signed an executive order saying men cannot compete in women's sports. I can't believe we even have to have this conversation, but unfortunately we do because common sense hasn't been all that common the last few years. Trump signed the executive order at the White House today, surrounded by women athletes. Some of these folks are my friends. They've become my friends as I've spoken out about this issue the last few years. This picture needs to be framed and put in a museum tonight, and I will tell you why. There are millions of Americans who voted for Donald Trump for the first time back in November because of this issue. They were tired of 5,000 different genders. They were tired of men and women's sports, and they were lifelong Democrats, lifelong liberals, independents who went and pulled the lever for Donald Trump because of this issue. It was a galvanizing issue, even when the Democrats said it was a nothing burger. We were also told time and time again, like a broken record the last few years by the mainstream media and the leadership in the Democratic Party, that if you did not support men and women's sports, you were closed-minded, you were bigoted, you were transphobic. I'm sorry, we just wanted common sense. People would say that to me all the time. You're gay, how can you not support trans people in women's sports? I might be gay, I'm not brain dead, I didn't fall down the stairs 10,000 times like Mitch McConnell, I have common sense. I don't think if you're born a man, you should be competing against women in sports. That is a fact. Now, one thing we've seen the last few years is that the mainstream media, they try to gaslight you and brainwash you into thinking the views of the minority are actually the views of the majority, but the data shows 79% of Americans agree with Donald Trump on this issue. Even during Donald Trump's inauguration on January 20th, he said there are only two genders. We're only going to recognize male and female in the United States government, and all hell broke loose from some of these liberals. The fact that we have to fight over the fact that there are two genders and that men shouldn't be in women's sports is absolute insanity, and it's why other countries have been laughing at us for years. We've also seen polls recently that favorability for the Democratic Party from within the Democratic Party is at an all-time low. There's a reason people are leaving the Democrat Party in droves, and it's because they've abandoned the American people, they've abandoned common sense, and people want to return to normalcy. They don't want open borders, they don't want men and women's sports, they don't want 5,000 different genders, they don't want wars all around the world, and that is why Trump won in a decisive victory. According to a recent New York Times Ipsos poll taken a few weeks ago, 79% of Americans think biological men should not compete against women in sports, so they are in lockstep with Donald Trump on this issue, even though we've been told we're crazy and we're in the minority and we're closed-minded. In fact, 80% of Americans agree. Trying to get 79% of Americans to agree on anything almost never happens. If a president had that kind of favorability rating, he could probably do 10 consecutive terms if we're being honest. 79%, that's a lot. I don't even think 79% of my family likes me. So after years of being told, hey, it's fine if 6'7" Tommy wants to compete against 5'2" Rachel in sports, absolutely not. The data is on our side. So Democrats, go and cry, boo-hoo, into your pillow over the data from the New York Times. The last thing I'll say is this. One of the biggest disappointments about Joe Biden is that his brand is that he's Grandpa Joe, he's good old Daddy Joe, even though his kids, they aren't all winners, and he's never even met his granddaughter in Arkansas, but his brand is that he's Grandpa Joe. But Joe Biden never had the gall or the balls to stand up for women's sports or women's spaces or women's rights. If you ask Kamala Harris or Joe Biden the last few years about women's rights, they will immediately start yelling about Roe v. Wade, the Dobbs decision, turning it back to the states. They don't want to touch this major issue. They did not have the nerve or the courage to stand up for women's rights. It's an embarrassment, and it's why Kamala Harris will probably never, ever be president. I have tons of strong women in my life. My life has been shaped by the strong women around me who I've worked with, who I've been friends with. For them, women's rights is so much bigger than abortion. But that's the one issue the Democrats want to debate day in and day out because they thought it was going to galvanize and move people to the polls. It didn't. Kamala Harris was sent packing back to California. Donald Trump and common sense won in a landslide, every single swing state. All right, my friends, I think I've said enough. Thanks for liking and following. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think about this executive order. This is huge for women. This is huge for women's sports, women's athletes. I will see you on the next one. Bye.